Hey, you're listening to Professional Development, the New York City Teacher Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Noah, and today I'm joined by third-time guest Norm Scott. To hear the first two installments of the Norm trilogy, be sure to check out episodes 31 and 36. Today we are taking a look at the UFT election results and in the second part of the episode, extrapolating to think about what they mean in the bigger picture and where we are headed in the next few years. Without any further ado, Norm, thanks so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. I feel like this is my regular stopping point.
Yeah, as a third-time guest, I think you are tied for the most appearances on the show. So this is great.
Well, you know, as you see your numbers start to fall, you know who to blame. Oh, yeah, him on again.
Norm the scapegoat. All right, perfect. So the topic of our conversation today, as the audience has probably already predicted, is the election. The election's over, and I guess I'll figure out whether to say congratulations or not over the course of this show. But I'm wondering, just to start us off, what were the overall results of the election numbers-wise? Like, what was the turnout? Who won, by how much, in which division, and how closely did these results correspond to your expectations?
Okay, so turnout. You know, I'm looking at I have all these graphs here. Turnout was I thought it was disappointing because let me just say it this way: it was the usual turnout,
okay,
which was disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's So let me go. The only way you could look at turnout is divisions. So turnout in retiree chapter was spectacular. Like almost 28,000 people voted, and I think in the last elections, we have a problem with 2019 because there were 3 caucuses running, and so we usually go back to 2016 as our sort of basis. And 2013 turnout was 21,500. 2016 it was 24,500. 2019 was 23,000, and this time was 27,350. So there was a bump. Now, as you may know, that there's a limit. You can't just, you can never have an election where 50,000 retirees voted, they all count as one. It's 23.5, if I'm not mistaken. So I think each vote, because there's 27 something, it's maybe, I don't know, is it 0.8? I'd have to talk to Jonathan, or somewhere in that 0.9. Each vote counts for that. So they're prorated. So if you look at the retiree vote, we got Unity got 19,368, and that's going to be prorated downward because it's a factor. And we got 7,984, which is a spectacular vote for an opposition group in the retiree chapter. I don't know if we ever got over 3,000, 3,500. Now, so that looks great. When it's broken down, it's still just under 30% that we got. Now, if you want to compare it to 2016, we got 12%, and Solidarity got 3%. But they ran separately. So let's say the opposition got 15% in 2016. It's got 30% this time. So everyone's saying, wow, that's a big jump from a previous general election. I have a different comparison. We ran a year ago in the chapter election as retiree advocate.
Right.
By the way, those 7,900 votes translate down to about 6,700 or 800 in terms of the prorated thing. So what happened last year, we ran and we got 29.8% a year ago, and we got about 6,700 votes in that election of about 24,000 who voted. People say, well, no, this is not chapter election, this is the general election. I don't know. A year ago, I don't think a lot of people had heard of Medicare yet. Maybe they did, and that's how we got 30%. Why did we jump to 30% a year ago? But I thought we would have jumped something from then in this election, and we didn't. I mean, we didn't at all. I mean, we had another 1,000 votes, with but sort of unity, So of the 3,500 extra people who voted this time from a year ago, it looks like we sort of almost split it. We came out with the same. I would have thought that the extra 4,000 votes would have given a majority to us. So I would have been hoping for a vote closer to 33, 35%, which would have been a real victory. 35 to even a 36% retirees would have been a victory.
Right. And instead you sort of held steady as opposed to the past year bringing in additional retirees who were displeased with Mulgrew-Care.
Well, look at all the work we did in the last year.
Right.
So how do you explain it? Everyone has their own explanation. I'm going to explain it that there are a hell of a lot of retirees who are in Unity Caucus. I mean, that's a big caucus, and they're around 60 years. So you got to think of every year when people retire, there are a whole bunch of Unity Caucus people who are retiring, and they're loyal to the caucus and to the union. And I think I was expecting some more switches from Unity to us, and I don't think that happened. I think Unity consolidated I think they went out to people and they sold their line, and it wasn't Mulgrew's fault, and blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, the court case. If you want to look at the court case, which benefited us, we won, and we won temporarily. Mm-hmm. But do you imagine if people had to start paying that extra money January 1st, when it was originally scheduled for? So now what? Anywhere from $190 a month to those who opted out, and those who stuck with it, maybe they would be happy. But there were so many people opting out. If that money was coming out of their pocket, I would guess that's worth 5% of the vote for sure. So the court case helped Mulgrew in a sense. And then the minute it came out, he sort of absolved himself of it and walked away from it and got away with it. And they have channels. Don't forget, Unity has tremendous channels to retirees all over the country. And they have chapters set up all over the country. And then the retiree chapter would never meet in person this whole year. It was only by Zoom, and it was totally controlled meetings. So you don't have access to those people. So on the other hand, hey, 30% is if that base holds, that's not bad. 8,000 votes, and you got to figure maybe in the next couple of years, newer retirees might be just PO'd enough that would come in our direction. Anyway, that's my analysis of retiree. I call this the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm going to give you the good now. And that's the high school vote. So the high school vote was the biggest success in this election. Right. I mean, look at the numbers. So you know that the high schools have been consistently opposition most of the last 30 years. I mean, I would say the only time Unity won on their own was in 2019, when the other caucuses ran against them, because they didn't win in 2016. They won in 2013 with no action, and in 2010 and in 2007 with no action. They didn't really run candidates in 2004, so I was with a group that won that. They lost in 2001. They lost in 1999. They lost in 1997. They lost in 1995. They lost in 1991. So, I mean, that's a pretty, and then they even into the 80s. So that's a pretty good record of losing on a high school level. And so I would say, when you say expectations, I would have been pretty disappointing if we lost this. Right. But I would have also been disappointed if we only won by a hair. Like in 2016, we got 2,275 votes. Unity got 2,061 votes, and Solidarity got 108. So we only won by 200 votes. This time we got 2,508. So we bumped up 300. Unity dropped under 2,000. They got 1,981. I mean, think about that. There's like 21,000 high school, teachers. The ballots were sent out for Unity, and trust me, they tried. I heard that they've been the big. They were. I heard people in Unity were crushed at losing. They really thought they would win it. They put out an all-out effort. They recruited people to run on their high school slate. Mm-hmm. Good people. A couple of friends of mine who I happen to like. One, I even heard from some of them after the election, So, So that victory is 500 votes. That's over 55% of the vote. So that's great, right? In 2001, New Action got 3,400 votes to beat Unity. They got 3,100. I mean, just to show you, you could say we won, and this is that, but when you want to say get out the vote, you would think I would have been hoping for 3,000. I was hoping for a smashing. I was hoping for 60%. So, because if we wanted to win the whole election, we really needed to swamp in the high schools, and we did great. And of course, the best part of it, and I just got off a Zoom where we were talking with some of the candidates who are, I think it's a spectacular list of 7. And I'm thrilled that these 7 and the fact that they represent like at least 3 or 4 different groups makes it even more exciting, because there's different angles of looking at things, and you come out of your caucus and maybe your caucus has a certain spin on something, and the fact that they're putting everyone in the same room to say, hey, our spin is this, and our spin is this, and let's figure out. I love that process, and for me, that's the exciting part about this election.
I hadn't thought about the pluralistic aspect of those 7. We've had 3 of the 7 on the show, which is great, and each of them is from a different caucus. We had so Alex Gillot is More, Lydia is Solidarity, and then Nick is New Action. So that's and that
right. And we have Ibes Mejia, chapter leader at Aviation. She's sort of represents ICE. Her connection to the Eternos is a long time connection. She taught at James' school, like at Jamaica High School. James has a tremendous network. James Eterno has this awesome network because he was so popular. He was so good as a chapter leader, and Jamaica was a big school. And then when they closed it, people went. It's like James is threw the seeds in the air, and everyone loved him, and they're all in touch with him. And Ebeth is one of those people. She sounds great. I've never met her in person. I'm dying to meet her. So that's the good part. So I give you the bad or the ugly. Okay. The bad part is the middle schools,
right?
And that is a killer that we missed by 200 votes winning the middle schools.
Right.
But that's not a success in a sense. Let me give you some numbers on remember, there's roughly 10, it's 4 executive board seats at stake, roughly under 11,000 votes were sent out. But let me just give you some history. In 2004, Unity got 2,700 in middle school. Oh, by the way, let me just say this. The middle schools have been seriously chopped. They used to be a broader range. Now it's fundamentally 6 to 8 schools, because there are so many K to 8s and there's so many 6 to 12s. 6 to 12s for high schools. K to 8s are elementary. So the middle schools. So the numbers don't really make sense until you get into later years. So let's start with 2013. Unity got 1,185 votes. I mean, in the entire middle school division.
Right.
In 2016, they got 1,649. That was a pretty good jump. They jumped 500 from 13 to 16. And in 19, they dropped back to 1,236. And this time they got 1,202. So Unity's vote total was almost as bad as 2013. By the way, in 2007, they got 1,499. And just to show you the output, so that's winning. Those are winning numbers.
Right.
When they got 1,649 in 2016, Nora New Action, got 882 votes. And Solidarity did very well in that. They got 178. But so you take the opposition was roughly a base of 1,000, and Unity's base was 1,600. So I was thinking, gee, who are we going to be able to close that gap? So I think we put some attention on the middle schools. We were making sure to get leaflets into as many middle schools as we could, and to come out of it with 938 votes, the entire middle school, and Unity got 1202. So, we lost. Well, it was closer. It was more than I thought. So it was 200, almost 300 vote difference. That's probably too much to even, say we weren't even as close as I thought we were. But how we didn't get more than 1,200, but on the other hand, we never have. So I don't know what to say about that. So that was the bad, I think. We could have had, but on the other hand, if you do the percentage part, we got 44% of the vote. They got 1,200. So with less than 1,000 votes, we got 44%. So that's something to brag about, but I'm not sure how much bragging I would do that, the vote total. Some people look at percentages and smile, and some people look at raw numbers and frown. So, but I think it's a combination. It shows that it's a winnable place if people do organize.
Right. That's one of those cases where the vote totals are so small relative to all of the ballots that are being sent out that a targeted get out the vote campaign would potentially yield big numbers. Whereas with retirees, the vote totals were pretty high and you were still sitting around 30%. So the question there is it's not a get out the vote question. It's a hearts and minds question of some sort.
Noah, my position has always been don't waste time on retirees. Because you're not going to, though it turns out that we did better, but I don't care. We're not going to win the election with our goal has been to win the teaching divisions as a base. See, once we win all three teaching divisions, we have 23 executive board seats out of 100. So you say, wow, that's only a third, but you have a pretty good claim that the 60,000 teachers, well, 70,000 teachers have pretty much voted for the opposition in the United Federation of Teachers. Now they will claim, well, the retirees didn't, and the functional chapters didn't. But you have a case to make for maybe making a case for taking it someplace to get some changes in the union, because we didn't accomplish that goal. In some ways, winning the high schools again is still status quo. Like it's been for forever. But in the elementary school is another. This is a big loss for Unity, even though they won the elementary school. They dropped to 4,728 votes. 36,000 ballots were sent out. Now, to give you, in 2019 they got 6,000. In 2016 they got 7,000. In 2010 they got almost 8,000. In 2004 they got almost 10,000. Now they only get they don't even get 5,000 votes in the elementary schools, right? Now, I never thought we would close that gap. Though when I first started with this election, I actually was telling people, if we have the people in the buildings and we have a campaign, we can, if not, we can, I would like to close the gap to 40% or something, we'll show we can win them. Mm-hmm. And we did close the gap. I mean, we got 23-21. Now that's funny because in 2016 we got 23-6. it's just like we got, and Solidarity got 222 elementary schools. So that's interesting that we actually, if you add the Solidarity vote and the New Action More vote from 2016, we dropped a little this time, but Unity dropped drastically. They dropped by thousands, which gave us 32% of the vote. And in the past, we've lucky if we got 20. So you want to call it the good thing is that Unity dropped. That's bad for them. The bad thing is that we didn't grab enough. We didn't grab. I don't think I grabbed any of those votes. People just didn't vote. Right. I don't know how to. I have to explain it. I don't think we have the UFC had enough, horses in the elementary schools. And let's forget that Unity stuffed every mailbox in the city. most likely, many more than once, with glossy, colorful leaflets. And I get into fights all the time with people. I say, I don't know if their leaflets or our leaflets. We're spending all this money and all this time. Is it really worth it to put these leaflets in boxes? Is that if that's our main strategy in every election? Even the New York Teacher ad. I remember people arguing, we have to run the election because we get the 2 pages in the New York Teacher. I said, my phone number was in the New York Teacher ad numerous times. Maybe every year, maybe I get one call. No, it's And this year, WeCoo, your favorite group, WeCoo, the E4E group, they ran 6 candidates. They got the same 2 pages we got.
Right.
My proposal is that next time we run 10 caucuses with 6 candidates in each, and take up the entire edition of the New York Teacher, which will get 2 pages. Run the same candidates in each caucus. So, by the way, that was interesting that we established an election rule that if you're a slate, you get 2 pages, right? So they're not a slate, because if you looked at the ballot, you only saw 2 slates. So Unity granted them slate status for the purposes of the New York Teacher, but they're not a slate. That's we may follow up on. I don't know if we're following up on an election complaint, because frankly, I don't think people even bother looking at the New York Teacher. It's like that. You saw that picture of that black hole that they found in the center of the galaxy.
Yeah, I listened to it too. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is I don't want to speak for anybody else. I will say that for myself at least, New York Teacher goes directly to recycling. Except for that, I remembered to look out for that one issue because I just wanted to take a look at the election stuff. And but other than that, yeah, that is a direct to recycling.
Well, actually, if you have a parakeet, it's actually. I don't even open it up, but I probably should, because you don't know. Maybe there's something in there. I just haven't opened up much in years, but it could. You imagine if that was a vibrant paper but maybe if it was vibrant, people still wouldn't open it up. So who knows, But anyway, so and just the last thing we didn't cover is functional, and. Or let's call it dysfunctional, if you'd like, the dysfunctional chapter. So I thought we had some potential there. We have the Unity total. So Unity has been running anywhere from 8,000 to 7,000 votes in functional. And there was something with like 60,000 ballots. I think it was maybe 60,000 ballots at that. This year they got 5,270 votes. I mean, that's a big drop in functional. I think, and the return rate in functional was horrendous. I think Jonathan Hallaby did the work, 15% maybe. That was the lowest turnout percentage. And we got 2,490. And in 2016, we got 2,232, and Solidarity got 323. So our number this time actually came underneath a little bit what we did in 2016. And so fundamentally, we're looking at status for us. Big drops for Unity in elementary, high school, middle, every division. And gains for us in high school and status everywhere else. That's the judgment.
Right. So it seems the question of apathy is the determinant here. Is will it get to the point where enough Unity voters just stop voting? Insufficient numbers to push the opposition across the finish line.
Do we want to win? And do we want to win that? Do I really want to win a union with a 75% of the people are apathetic? I mean, now, by the way, this is a theory that's been hatched by a friend of mine who happens to be in Unity Caucus, or not in Unity Caucus, but someone linked to Unity Caucus, and I agree that it's not just apathy. That it is that some of the non-votes are a vote against both caucuses, both groups. That it is people who are just not interested, but not interested in terms of apathetic, but actively making a political decision to boycott the election. Now, how many that would be, but I would bet there's certain people who says a plague on both your houses. I got that feeling at times. I thought we were the Golden Knights on the white horse in the past, and people looked at me as, oh, you're just no different than them. If you got in power, you do the same thing. There's like this enormous cynicism about it, and maybe maybe there's a fear that power does, once you get into power.
What do the results tell us, numbers wise, other than some of these things that we've already talked about, like just that Mulgrew Care didn't have the sway that it seemed, or that the court case kind of saved Unity from the Mulgrew Care debacle? And can we look at the data and sort of infer anything about the interests of UFT members, both the voting and the non-voting members, like the folks who might just be disengaged from the experience because of the way it's set up?
So we got 2,600 high schools, 1,900 middle schools, 430. We got 2,300 elementary. We got if you look at all the different divisions, we got, I don't know, my numbers from the four divisions, so not retirees. We got probably as many votes as we got as retiree votes. In other words, half our votes were retirees, and the other half were not. So actual people working in the schools, our numbers are maybe probably under 10,000. No, literally it's 2,500, 3,500, maybe 8,000. Now, but their numbers aren't that much better in the schools, right? I mean, they're not much better. They're pretty awful. So we're almost at a wash there. They have a little more, but So what does it tell you when 120,000 people and so few are interested? What can you infer from it is that we have a base and a claim now. Now it depends how you want to look at it. You want to break it. You want to say our total vote? Yeah, our total vote is probably the highest in history for an opposition. Maybe it's 15,000. 14,000, but 15,000, let's say, and that now establishes that there are 15,000 people who pulled the lever for United for Change. It allows us to go in and say, wait a minute, we actually represent 15,000 people. We are entitled to certain rights based on our voting pattern. The fact that we got overall 33% of the vote. Third of the vote, the entire voting population in the Union. That's been a goal. That represents a serious portion of the electorate. And I would make the case, for instance, that United for Change should be entitled to some time at the Delegate Assembly to represent those people. I'm not going to say, give us the whole meeting. No, we should be able to, I would argue that we should be allowed to make a resolution at every meeting. We should be allowed to ask 2 questions at every meeting, and we pick the rep who's going to get up and do that. We should be given some participatory role in, just like we are at the executive board, where we'll have 7 people. We should have our delegates who are elected in the school, and you can say it's 2 different elections, right? But we do have a force of delegates and chapter leaders who are elected in 2 ways. One is that they ran with UFC, United for Change, and we got a certain portion of the union. And the other thing is they were elected in their schools. They're not at the Delegate Assembly unless someone elected them. So they're serving 2 functions. They represent the people in the building. That's as an individual. But they bring an extra added thing in that they've aligned themselves with a group that actually runs in the election and shows that it has some force in the school. So they represent their school, and they represent a third of the membership at the Delegate Assembly. And I think there should be recognition that they do that. And I think that there should be more opening at the Delegate Assembly. That's one thing that I think is a positive, and one of the positives. It's the good for us, it's the ugly for the Unity Corps.
Right. So you mentioned that this is likely the largest number of votes that opposition has gotten in the UFT election in history. So,
and maybe one of the highest percentages ever. That's 33, whatever it is.
Oh, right. I suppose with turnout being sort of in flux, that would be a question. But certainly the percentage seems like it would be the highest.
Well, it's a big difference, Noah, to say we only got 20%. Mobile got 85% of the vote, and we got 15% or even 20%. It's very different to say we got 30. Now you're talking 2/3 to 1/3. It's not 4 out of 5 voters. It's 1 out of 3 voters. It changes the equation a little bit. They may not want to hear that, but it gives us some ground for making a case.
I think that's as good a place as any to wrap up the conversation for now and take it over to the Patreon page. If you're enjoying what you're hearing so far and want to hear more about insights pulled from this election and some possible scenarios for the future, be sure to join us over at patreon.com/professional development.